DIY network, that is a do-it-yourself network. They have some really cool programs like Insane Pools, Barnwood Builders, Maine Cabin Masters, Treehouse Masters, my favorite, Tiny House, Big Living. That's a good one. And then they have a series of things like repairs and remodeling. I hate my kitchen, I hate my bath, I hate my yard. And all of these programs have to do with building or repairing homes or other structures. And what's so interesting about these programs is that they make it look very easy, as if you could really do it yourself. And I know there are some people who are so talented that they can actually do these kinds of things. But let's face it, the great majority of us rely on the professionals who charge us an arm and a leg to do the things that we can't do. Even so, these programs are very entertaining, I think, and very informational. In the gospel today, Jesus is talking about a man building a house. But Jesus is not talking about actual construction. No, the house Jesus is talking about is our life. He says that whoever hears his words, his teachings, and acts upon them is like the person who builds his house on rock. And with rock as the foundation of his house, the house will stand firm, especially when the storms of life come. The house will remain unmoved. But Jesus also says that the person who hears his words, his teachings, and does not live them out is like a fool who builds a house on sand. And when the storms come, the foundation shifts. It's not stable enough to hold the house up, and it all comes tumbling down. So how is our life like these examples? What about the person who builds his life on the philosophy of self-gain or pleasure or material prosperity? Is that a house? Is that a life that can weather the storms? No. That's because life is unpredictable. Things change, sometimes for the worse. And those who base their life on passing things will experience instability and uncertainty and even ruin. And what about the person who builds his or her life on a political or economic philosophy? What happens when that model fails or proves to be untrue? What happens when a person bases everything on a certain philosophy that proves to be wrong? Then it all comes tumbling down. Well, what about the person who builds his or her life on faith and embraces certain unchanging truths? What happens when the person who has faith in God as a foundation experiences hardships and challenges? Then that person can rest assured, because even though the storms will come and push against that person, he or she could stand firm because they have a foundation, an unchanging truth that they have based everything on. And what is that unchanging truth? That God's love is greater than anything else in this world. And that God's love is more powerful than any storms that can come in this life. And that God's love is more enduring than any human philosophy. God's love is unchanging, even in a world that is constantly changing. So I think Advent could be a time for us really to reflect on what it means that God sent his Son into the world. Why did God send his Son into this world? Maybe to help us establish a firm foundation which will see us through this life and into the next. That foundation is Christ. He is the person who sustains us in life. He is the foundation we need. It is his teachings that give our lives meaning and purpose. So the choice really is ours. How do we choose to build our house? How do we live our life? Do we have that foundation which can help us stand firm?